Ladies and gentlemen, I've always wondered over the last 50 years why this movie never came out for Christmas 1972. Maybe they felt it was going to combat against The Godfather for the box office. But if you're a heterosexual man in 1973 and you're predicting the best, what do you call, gender movie of your gender, how about John Wayne, Ann-Margret, Rod Taylor, Ben Johnson, and Ricardo Montalban in Corinthian leather? Of course, we're going to be talking about the neo-classic, almost a classic, but kind of missed in the last 20 minutes, The Train Robbers. Now, written and directed by Burt Kennedy and starring, again, the Duke and Ann-Margret as the main characters. Filming took place in Sierra de Dragones National Park in the town of Sombrerete, Mexico. Two brief scenes take place in the square that was used for the final shootout in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Now, John Wayne's son Michael produced it, with cinematography by William H. Cloutier, edited by Frank Santillo, music by Dominic Frontier, and of course John's Batchak Productions, distributed by Warner Brothers. Box office was $2.6 million and it was a big hit in France. 92 minutes. Released the week before Valentine's in 1973, maybe because they capitalized on the popularity of Ann-Margret at the time. Now, after the death of her husband, Ann-Margret, Mrs. Lowe, wants to tell the railroad where to find $500,000 in gold her late husband, Matt, stole during a train robbery and clear the family name for her son. Instead, Lane convinced her, John Wayne, to retrieve the gold so to collect the $50,000 reward offered by the railroad for its return. Lane lines up some old friends to assist him in retrieving the gold for a share of the reward. But the other original train robbers have gathered a gang and will try to get the gold at any cost, so it goes over quite fast. As they all journey into Mexico in search of the hidden gold, they are followed closely by an unnamed Pinkerton agent who is working for Wells Fargo. Very, very good plot, as we say. After a series of adventures and battles, they return to Texas with the gold, where there's one final battle. The next day, Lane and these men put Mrs. Lowe on a train to return the gold and tell her she can keep the reward for herself and her son. As they're walking past the end of the train, they meet the Pinkerton agent who tells them that the train is pulling out, that Matt Lowe was never married, and that Mrs. Lowe is really a prostitute named Lily who fooled him into helping her get the gold for herself. Lane then leads his gang to rob the train as the film ends. Good denouement, but kind of went down in the last 20 minutes. You could pretty well figure what would Ann-Margret be doing, dressing so well, sold up. Now, John Wayne plays Lane, Ann-Margret as Lily Lowe, Rod Taylor as Grady, Ben Johnson as Jesse, Christopher George as Calhoun, Jerry Gatlin as Sam Turner, Ricardo Montalban, who plays the cameo as the Pinkerton Man, and Bobby Vinton, that Polish prince, as Ben Young. Now, Roger Ebert of Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 3 stars out of 4 and called it a fairly good and a quieter workmanlike sort of way, although there is a plot twist at the end that ruins things unnecessarily. But what's best about it, what makes it worth seeing, is Kennedy's visual approach to the subject of John Wayne. Now, Roger Greenspun of the New York Times wrote, "I don't think that tone and attitude are quite enough to sustain a movie, or that an air of good feeling can take the place of meaningful dramatic action. But as an exercise in pleasantness, The Train Robbers is an interesting addition to the late history of the traditional, unpretentious Western." Arthur D. Murphy of Variety called it above-average John Wayne actioner, written and directed by Burt Kennedy with suspense, comedy, and humanism not usually found in the formula. Now, Gene Siskel of Chicago Tribune gave the film 3 stars out of 4 and declared that John Wayne's legend not only lives in the train robbers, it gleams. Kevin Thomas of the LA Times wrote, "In the light of the current and largely admirable cycle of revisionist westerns that lay waste to those cherished myths of the frontier, is downright reassuring to watch an amiable, traditional style John Wayne adventure. There's a neat balance between action and comedy, and Wayne himself is in top form." Of course, when Blazing Saddles came out in '74, all the John Wayne style movies like this became trite and negative. Anyway, now the film holds a score of 33% on Rotten Tomatoes, based on 6 reviews. Quentin Tarantino, who's been quoted a lot in our series here, but his thoughts of John Wayne, he later called it, "It's so light, it's barely a movie, but that doesn't mean it's not amusing." Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know in this one, Rod Taylor's tremendous and a Montalban, but Ann-Margret looks luminous here. Ann-Margret could play country westerns or westerns with the best of them. But Ann-Margret, I think at the time, that was before she accepted Tommy. I'd much rather see her on the trail than rolling around in chocolate sauce or whatever was coming out of there like soap, that TV. But Ann-Margret, The Train Robber is a very underrated movie. And you rarely see it on TV. If you can tell me the last time you saw the Train Robbers on TV, I'll give you $20 or a piece of gold, because I don't see it at all. So again, I have not seen the movie. I've seen highlights, so I haven't seen the full movie. When John Wayne died, there was a few clips for the movie, but it looks quite interesting. If anybody has watched the movie, and if you want to give your interpretation of it, leave it in the comment section, and I will try to find it on VHS or Blu-ray, because what I see right now, I don't know how it's out on video. I think it's on DVD, obviously, because the different John Wayne collections, but I don't. The VHS tape, I think, is long out of print. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here with our John Wayne tribute podcast on these movies in the 1970s, then let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or super chat. And don't forget, all requests are greatly accepted, and all requests are greatly considered. Thanks for listening. Bye.